Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity. You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search, focus that fire. And so we come together. Join us. Join the discussion. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Welcome back for episode 144 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on September 21st over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our topic for tonight's episode is going to be a look at a Broken Vanguard. But first, let's run through a quick introduction of those on the show for tonight. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. Next up, we have our own master of social media, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well. How has the week treated you so far?
I am trying to kill people in Iron Banner, and it's not going well at the moment, but I am doing well otherwise. Thank you for asking.
And rounding out the usual team, we have the man who is known far and wide as the Destiny lore content cop, the one and only Beard Grizzly. Beard, how are you doing tonight?
Everybody is wrong except me.
We're such a peppy group.
I'm fine. I'm shooting things in Tangled Shore right now because it's the first time all week I've been able to.
The best clip so far from Beard tonight has been, look, you don't need to snipe me. You're not involved in this event.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm over here in Tangled Shore shooting up things in a heroic event. And all of a sudden, I start getting plinked by this fallen from, like, the back catwalk. And I'm just like, dude, get out of here. Your spawn zone is over there. My spawn zone of enemies that I'm worried about is right here. Go away. Anyway, that's been my night. I hope yours has been good, too.
Well, last week we asked the community, I think, Green, help me here. Who would be the best Hunter replacement?
Who do you think should be the best or the next Hunter Vanguard? I got a comment on it from Beard himself about, is it would or should? Is because phrasing matters.
Yes, especially in this case.
Yes. So it was, who do you think should be the next Hunter Vanguard? And we had a lot of people have some very big opinions on this. I put only 4 options because Twitter has limitations. And, it's what it is. So the 4 options I put were Shiro 4, Aphrodite, Marcus Wren, or to have kind of a control group, no one. And what ended up happening after 400 and some odd votes, people wanted Shiro, which I kind of saw coming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people want Shiro. I get it. I kind of wish not, because I don't think Shiro's that fleshed out of a character yet. I mean, it'd be nice to get him fleshed out, but I don't know. What ended up happening is 55% of people wanted Shiro, 15% wanted Aphrodite, 13% thought Marcus Wren, and 17%, which was kind of the surpriser for me, wanted no one. They thought that, and I can't remember who was commenting on this, and I'm sorry because I don't have it pulled up right away. He basically said, since we don't have a new speaker, why should we have a new Hunter Vanguard?
Ooh, that is dangerous as heck.
Yeah, but it's a good point. I mean, kind of.
In some ways.
I mean, we're really not sure about the Hunter Vanguard to begin with. They're based around the Dare, of course, but we still don't necessarily understand the stipulations of said Dare entirely, which I'm still kind of surprised with.
Right.
But we also see some stipulations between, I think it's Caliban 8 and Tallulah Fairwind and some of the newer lore entries as well. We see how that kind of goes down and how there was a change of hands that way as well. And I don't know if it officialized that Caliban was made as a Hunter Vanguard, but that is just something to show off as another point. Like the Hunter Vanguard is seemingly a more dangerous position than some of the others are for some reason. There's a lot of death that surrounds it.
Well, I mean, they are kind of responsible. It kind of seems like the hunters are responsible for the bounties. So they track, like, they're the ones that tend to seem to track the what's the kind way of saying, the assassination targets of the city. So they tend to probably attract some wrath as well.
That is true. That is true indeed. So, with that being said,
the chat right now is making the point that, like, if you played a hunter, I can see Cayde would have tried to put the bet on the player. I mean, the thing is with the Dare and this kind of goes back to what Beard was just kind of saying, is like, we don't really know the conditions of the Dare. If we go off of the Dare between Andal and Cayde, which actually we got a little bit of clarity with that, with the new information, the Dare between them was basically who could survive a battle with Taniks, which, you know, kind of sets the stage for the whole situation for what was that, the Shadow Thief strike. And that kind of explains Cayde's hatred towards Taniks. You also see that in not Truth to Power, the Most Loyal entries, where Varix tries to talk to Cayde in the bar in the Tangled Shore. He mentions Taniks, and Cayde nearly takes him out. Like, Taniks is a very sore subject with Cayde because of the Vanguard Dare, not just because he lost, but because in losing he lost a friend as well. So, I mean, the Dare definitely seems to be something of a very dangerous stipulation as well.
And Cayde's not one to, like, go off the handle very quickly.
No,
so to have that happen is pretty. It should give some stress to how much Andal meant to him. But I think that's why a lot of people also went with Shiro, because of how much Shiro and Cayde seem to have gotten along over the course of time. We still don't know exactly everything behind them, of course, but there are a lot of connections between the two of them. So much so that, of course, Shiro is Cayde's, or I should say it this way because it's a little easier. Cayde is Shiro's mentor.
Right.
So at least in terms of that would actually put us in same or equal terms as how it was with Andal to Cayde. So, which is kind of follow from student downward, basically.
But I mean, and then there's also the argument there that that's where the Dare comes in too, because there was no compulsion. There is no compulsion for Shiro to step into the Vanguard position. Like, that's the entire point of the Dare, is that's the only way the Vanguard can basically rope the hunters into it, because they're such wild spirits and, you know, wanderers. They have very strong wanderlust, and so for them to, and I think Cayde actually mentions that in his in the entries that we'll probably talk about a little bit here once the show really starts. But he mentions that, you know, a hunter is only as good as their word, and if nothing else, that's what you hold to. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a hunter, you hold to your word, and that's where the Dare kind of it's the loophole that the Vanguard uses to kind of keep them on a leash a bit.
Yep.
So, but obviously I know we have some pretty powerful thoughts on that one. So let's run through our standard intro real quick, and then we'll get right into it. In our last episode of Focus Fire Chat, we discussed the new information about the Awoken. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please rate and, if you can, review the show on iTunes, Podbean, or whichever podcasting app you use to enjoy podcasts. Reviews are extremely helpful as they not only let us know what we can do better, but help us stay up on charts, which help others find our amazing community. To those of you who have already taken the time to leave us a review, thank you. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday at around 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a high-level summary of the previous week's chat for those who were unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found on our website. If you're a fan of lore in all its various forms, be sure to also check out thelorenetwork.com, where you can find a wide variety of some amazing content that covers a number of different titles and mediums. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on the Drifter's Gambit lore booklet. Note that we will not have a poll this weekend, as we are going to set aside next week's discussion for a summarization of the extra lore content for September, Cyberpunk 2077. I actually stole the summary from Green this week, so forgive me if I don't do it the normal justice. Modern psychological views on the concept of dealing with loss began to be fully explored in 1969 with the publication of On Death and Dying by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It was here that we see the formal introduction of the 5 stages of loss. The first, denial and isolation; the second, anger; third, bargaining; fourth, depression; and fifth, acceptance. Today, we see a much more diverse view of this process, with the underlying theme remaining, which views each individual as having unique needs in regards to both the manner and duration of the grieving process. The important thing to keep in mind when discussing grief or mourning is that this is a process, not a state of mind. Every individual will process the loss in their own way and at their own pace. Generally, it is seen that there are 4 major tasks which are used as benchmarks to assist and or determine the state of the individual who is experiencing grief. Task 1 is accepting the reality of the loss. Task 2 is working through the pain of grief. Task 3 is adjusting to the environment in which the deceased is missing. And Task 4 is emotionally relocating the deceased and moving on with their life. In the same way that one will experience the Kubler-Ross stages in a non-linear fashion, we will often see the undergoing of these tasks being completed in a rather unique fashion. Further in the discussion here, it is important to note that the grief of soldiers does not, nor arguably can, follow what is referred to as the traditional prescription for grief and mourning. This was detailed in depth with D. Grossman's 2009 publication on Killing: The Psychological Cost of Learning to Kill in War and Society, in which he argues that the grief of a soldier is significantly different when it involves killing human beings. While this process is similar to that of Kubler-Ross, there is a greater magnitude and intensity for the soldier. In this situation, Grossman makes the point that the goal of grief resolution is that of reaching a point at which the individual is, quote, neither depressed nor angry about their fate, end quote. Note that the universe of Destiny is a fictional creation. The opinion stated within this episode on the nature of the responses of characters within this universe to the death of a loved one is uniquely specific to these unrealistic contexts. The reactions of the characters and our analysis of those reactions need to be noted as existing outside of the scope of any realistic paradigm. Before we jump into the information and thoughts the community had about the Vanguard, however, let's have a quick chat about this week's Lost Lore. All right, so real quick, this Lost Lore is going to be a pretty quick one. It's just really a distinction, I guess, between the terms. I know this is kind of shifting into more of a semantics piece more than Lost Lore these last couple times, but this one is really, I just kind of want to draw a distinction between grief and mourning. Those terms are often used interchangeably, and they're actually from I guess an academic standpoint, they're not synonymous. Grief is usually grief is usually identified as the internal experience of loss, and mourning is the external expression of grief. What this basically translates into in thanatological studies is that everyone will experience grief, however, not everyone mourns. And so that is a really important distinction to remember in reality, as well as, in our discussion here when we're talking about, the different reactions of the different members of the Vanguard. Everyone has different, obviously unique reactions to trauma. And if you are, in the camp where you think that Cayde's death is not a traumatic event, especially for the two remaining members of the Vanguard, I'm sorry to say, but that's not the case. It's very traumatic. That's a huge trauma to them, almost probably as much as the events of Destiny 2's vanilla campaign where they lost their light. And so it's just an important thing to remember that, especially with regards to the difference in the way that they express their grief. Zavala is very stoic. Ikora is not very stoic. The external expression is what we're going to be probably primarily talking about. I think that's just an important distinction. And I'm the only reason I'm kind of really hammering home this idea that, we are analyzing fictional characters is because this is actually a really touchy topic. And I recognize that, especially because this is actually a topic that I spent a number of years researching in my own life. As far as my degree, I have a degree in thanatological studies. So it's something that I am actually pretty cognizant of. And I've seen both really, really healthy practices, and I've also explored really unhealthy practices. And I think I will close this off with saying, obviously, if there is a situation in which someone is needing to talk, again, we've said this before on the show, but please reach out to us, and please don't take anything that we're saying here as a judgment on anything realistic, because it's a game. It is a video game. And so that's where I'm going to kind of just leave that. I don't know, Greenbeard, if you guys wanted to weigh in on that, or if we wanted to jump into just the analysis, I guess.
Well, per usual, I always do have my Discord does have a help and rant channel that's built into it. So if you guys ever do need to just go into a place that can kind of allow for a channel like that, just feel free to drop in. It's completely open to everybody. No matter what the topic might be, let us know if you're comfortable about talking with it. If not, and you just want to say, I'm not okay, I need just somebody to talk with right now, we get it. We are all at different levels when it comes to accepting like where we're at in our lives, and that could be any number of things realistically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you guys ever need to just come vent, whatever, I will try to listen if I can, if I'm free. And if I am not free, then I've got plenty of other people that are willing to step up and talk with you about it too. So we are always, I think that is one thing that I've always liked about the Destiny community in general. We've always been very open about working with each other, talking to each other, and not really wanting to hide that very much at all. And in addition, there are other groups that do a fantastic job of it as well, like the Saint 14 Project.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's who I was going to mention.
Yeah, Saint 14 are a fantastic group of guys and gals, and they do some fantastic work for mental health. Because I know one of the things that they had mentioned from last year with Guardian Con is that they want to try to get a booth together to make it so that if you're a little overwhelmed or something, you can drop in, say hi, and just have like a kind of a safe spot to settle down for a little while. But definitely a good group of people that also understand how mental faculty works in terms of
knowledgeable.
Yes.
Like I did an episode with these guys, and they are quite intelligent. Like they have a doctor on there, or a guy who practices, and it's interesting to hear him go through different topics. And what they do is they don't necessarily diagnose anybody or anything like that. Like that is not within their purview. They just talk about different types of mental health struggles that people tend to have, and offer up some suggestions for how to live with whatever thing that you're living with, or how to seek out help. More importantly, they provide so many different projects and community groups that work on those different topics. Like the one episode that I was on, we went over it's not bipolar disorder, but they went over
personality disorder, if I remember.
Yeah, it was personality disorder. And it was really interesting. And we talked about it from a video game standpoint first, but that was very mild in comparison to the main bulk of the topic of how to find help and how to recognize signs of it and how it's defined, not necessarily how you diagnose anybody with it, because that is such a fluctuating pendulum half the time, but how you can be more aware of these things.
So yeah, I mean, and the only reason we're kind of hammering that bit home is because, again, like I said, this is, for me, I am super sensitive, I guess, about this topic. And we'll probably get into that a little bit, because my personal reaction to stress is very different from the average individuals, or well, not average, but like the norm or considered norm. And so I kind of actually am more in the camp of, I really agree with Zavala and his response to it. While I know a lot of the more outspoken individuals have kind of sided with Ikora's response and, all that, which is to be expected for that type of personality. But like, there's just a lot of nuanced differences. And so I don't want, if we come across as harsh or critiquing anything, I don't want that to be translated into our view on a real context, because it's not, if that makes sense. But that, yeah, so I'll shelve that entire statement for the time being, because I know everyone's here for a video game analysis, not necessarily a preaching. But so okay, let's jump into it. Let's just jump right into it. We're going to be focusing on Zavala and Ikora. But I do think that it is worth noting that, these are not the only major individuals in the tower even that have reactions to it. This past week on Twitter, I kind of was posting quotes from a lot of different individuals within the tower. And it's talking, just really about how they respond to stress and how they respond to, carrying on, really. And so I guess which one do we want to start with? Do we want to start with Zavala? Do we want to start with Ikora? Do you guys have a preference?
Let's start with Ikora, because I think that Zavala is, in some ways, I want to hear your take on Zavala, since you can relate to what he's, or not relate, but empathize with how he's feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't. I'm still very upset with Zavala, even after reading the cards and seeing what he's going through. I'm still really upset with him, because that's not how I would have reacted.
There's only one thing that really irks me about Zavala right now, and that's more as a side note, but it's him being so willing to put the forces of the Vanguard right towards the reef, like as quickly as he did. That is my biggest gripe that I think I have right now when it comes down to him.
Didn't he want to bring the reef, like him? There's a card with him and Petra where he wanted to bring the people of the reef to the city, and Petra refused. And so Zavala didn't want to commit too much to the reef.
Yeah, except for the entirety of the Vanguard.
I mean,
Yeah, what do you mean?
We're jumping
I
in.
must have missed that part. So yeah, I'll
I guess.
admit.
Well,
I'll
let's
admit
just talk
ignorant.
about Zavala because
I mean-
we're already there.
Sorry.
No. I mean, it's a hard thing to. It's a very touchy subject at this point because I know a ton of people who are real mad at Zavala for the way he's acting.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'll be quite transparent. I was really pissed at Zavala with the way that he reacted in Warmind. Actually, for the exact reason that I'm actually really okay with his reaction in this expansion, because it didn't go along with his the personality that they've presented him. It was very his reaction in Warmind was very out of character for how they have presented him in the Grimoire and in the game.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of confusing, really, more than anything, which is where my frustration with him for that expansion kind of stemmed from. Whereas, his reaction here, so, again, looking at Zavala, just looking at our initial introduction to Zavala, we kind of get a sense that this is going to be his reaction to stress. If you look at the Grimoire card from Destiny 1 with Zavala, it's got he mentions a poet from Edo, Japan, Bato or Basho.
Basho.
If you delve into the poetry of this individual, you'll find that he actually he's a very he's an individual that went through a lot of trauma in his own time. Some of it was self-inflicted. He was one of the really big proponents of living a poverty or a simplistic lifestyle. He was he was a renowned traveler. He traveled quite a bit, and he made a point of kind of not really having a area that he had roots involved in. And so part of it is it's not necessarily. It wasn't like he had a bad hand dealt to him. He chose a lot of this, but the other thing that he did was he really pushed for transcendence of emotions, in the sense that you recognize that emotions are there, and you recognize that you have them as responses, but you don't let them dictate what you do. And there are things such as honor and duty that will always take precedent. I guess, yeah, in a way, the Vulcan, I guess if you look at a really oversimplified Vulcanism, yeah, kind of.
I would say Spock, and more specifically because Spock has the emotions because of his human half, versus the Vulcan race who tends to not embrace those at all.
Yeah, it's fairly close to that. Even then...
I guess it depends on how much you want to get into the debate on what Vulcans actually are.
Right, I'm going to say, because that tends to be a very loaded question to begin with.
Right.
The entirety of that conversation, though, definitely does get kind of, it gets broad. But I guess if you do want to simplify it, yeah, the idea of casting out emotion is the idea of it, but Zavala's doing it for such different reasons.
Right.
Where Vulcans are doing it for the sake of quote-unquote bettering themselves, or what they believe is bettering themselves, only because emotion drives them to a higher point of more emotion than what most human beings even can be, as I know Spock's father has put it a couple times. I would probably say that they do it for the sake of making sure that their people don't go the way of the Romulan too much.
Right.
Because that's, of course, the counter argument that you can make, is that the Romulans get so... They
get so bent out of shape.
About Star Trek as much as I am. Yeah, they're very touchy about everything so quickly. Compared to what you'll find, of course, with a good majority of Vulcans. And there are still some Vulcans that feel that emotion is the proper way. If we want to take, Final Frontier as is Final Frontier? No. I can't remember it now,
yeah,
but Star Trek 5. But Spock's brother, Saavik, I think it is a large proponent of how emotions actually can help the betterment of the Vulcan people. and he starts to look around for like Shakari and all that, which is what they basically call the Vulcans call the Garden of Eden, which is where everything ends up culminating from in the universe. But this entirety is shunned by the Vulcans because it starts to be a problem for them, if you will. It starts to be an emotional trip that they have to be very mindful of. But yeah, long story short, before I really do carry on this whole thing, Zavala's doing it for the ideas of being a tactician and being the betterment of it being a leader, which I can understand the more that I'm there. But initially, from an emotional response, he obviously doesn't have one because he's trying to take the better side of everything. Because as much as we've also said about Basho, the other piece of it would also be Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu, yep.
Sun Tzu is he's quoted Sun Tzu and a couple other major tacticians from ancient history, but Sun Tzu is his largest one that he quotes. Mm-hmm. And Sun Tzu's overall ideas are just think ahead of what your opponent is going to do. And like some of Sun Tzu's like famous things are more like think about the land that you're on, think about how your position is versus your enemy, never be below your enemy and never run uphill towards them, stuff like that. And these are the kind of wear down tactics that Sun Tzu is all about. Well, Zavala embraces those very well, and he understands that as he says, we are not conquerors. We are not an army. We are not something that can stand up to effectively what is a force, what is now being presented to us. So, again, before I keep carrying this on, I'll stop here. But it's important to kind of note the differences between how Zavala's tactician ways are versus something like Ikora's iconoclastic ways.
And I was about to say that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can see both of them. I don't agree with Zavala's take because that's not personally where I am. And as much as I am somebody that will still understand both sides, I know that eventually I have to choose a side. And Zavala's is the side that I personally cannot agree with or the side that I would be on. But I do so understanding, as Zavala also puts it in The Forsaken, at the end of it all, that there is going to be consequences that we are going to have to face by the end of it as well. There are ups and downs that we have to take with the points that we decide to attack or garner as our individual selves may be, or as a group may be. And Zavala is really just looking out for humanity as a whole. Anyway, yeah, I think I rambled on enough about that. It's just important to know the differences between them.
Yeah, and I think that's really, I think that ramble, as you call it, is actually really along the lines of what I was going to say, too. You see that historically, Zavala's character is exactly that, a really even keel. Like, mm-hmm. I see chat right now is talking about how he's walling off his emotions and he's trying to lock out the universe, but he's not.
I would say he's the exact opposite. He struggles with it just as much as Ikora does.
Which is why the quote on the Vanguard card, if you notice, it says undated battle notes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he says Basho had it right. We struggle after. I mean, there is a way that they can twist that to see that is notes that he has made after the Forsaken events. Like, because we don't know when these Grimoire cards. Now, I mean, was there that much forethought? We can argue that all we want, but the nice thing about that is Basho actually has poems or haikus, really, about the struggle of mortality and like how you handle that. And what is going on within those conflicting points? Z in chat right now is quoting Sun Tzu as well. And the thing is like, and I hear you, Beard. I do. I would argue though, and I think you kind of said this, but I just wanted to revisit it. It's not that Zavala is not choosing a side. Zavala is choosing a side.
Well, he's choosing his side. I understand that I need to choose a side by the end of it as well.
Right, and what I'm saying
yeah,
is that, what I'm saying is I've seen a number of people being like, well, Zavala just doesn't want to get involved. No, Zavala is involved.
Yep.
He's just choosing to protect his own people. And this is where you kind of get that sense of like, you know, his, like what you were saying with the quote of like, we're not an army, we're not conquerors. No, you're guardians. Guardians guard. They protect. They don't hunt down and kill. I mean, and there's also there's a very thin line that they've danced on that because, you know, kind of, and I think we were kind of talking about this a little bit before the intro credits and even a bit before the show started, you know, the hunter dare, you know, there's a reason that the hunters kind of, you know, ignoring the trivial and the almost frivolous kind of, oh, well, hunters don't like being stuck in one place at a time. No, the problem is also that the Hunter Vanguard is in charge of the bounty board. You know, they're the ones who hand out the assassination orders for the protection of the city. They are the ones that put priorities on targets and say this individual needs to be taken off the board. And so there's also a degree of danger because if those individuals who have been assigned to be taken off decide that they kind of want to push back, well, the individual they push back against is going to be the one who put the hit on them. And so there's also that. So it's not that Zavala is and I mean, geez, the I guess it's a meme now. The quote from Zavala about Cerberus Vey. I mean, Zavala is he's not shy about calling for the beheading of a snake. But there is a tactical difference in what we see in Forsaken, in that we are not leading a surgical strike. We are actually leading and arguably leading an army into a place to police it, to domesticate it, to pacify it, you know, whatever word you want to use there. But that is not a strike. That is actually a campaign against that area.
And the same is also now true of like the Dreaming City and how much is offered there. And that's where I was saying earlier why I'm a little conflicted and confused with how Zavala was so willing to offer up the Vanguard's resources to Petra the way that he was. I know that we've been tenuous at best when it comes down to the Reef and how we can kind of see them as friends, but that really just kind of burned me when I read that. I was like,
are you talking about when the Paladin Rior was like,
yes,
come help us,
yeah.
And then Zavala's like gave her a nod?
Yeah, I guess he said what he did to like everybody out there. I was like, all right, if anything was like a backdrop to how all of this would be, like even Kamala is sitting there like looking at Zavala like, this is completely out of character for you. Right. And it just feels like it's entirely out of character. But that instance was the final nail in the coffin for me to say, I don't know what is going on with Zavala. I'm confused about Zavala. The position that he seems to be taking up seems to be one that is contentious to his own whims and nothing else. And that is a really big problem when it comes down to how they're either telling the story of him or what they're attempting to do with him. Now, I'm anxious to see how it unravels all the same, but that point right there really kind of, it makes me question what the entirety of his reasoning for not going after Cayde would have been almost entirely. You know, it contradicts those actions.
You know, I see Blue's point more on this aspect of it. Like, I'm still mad at him.
Oh yeah,
I'm not happy with his decision.
I see it, but it's a contradictory idea. That's all. Like, I want to just make that clear, if nothing else, before I let you go, Green. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It just feels like there is something weird about what he is doing there, and then in another moment. Anyway,
you have to think about what the Vanguard positions mean to not only the tower and Guardians, but also to the city. Mm-hmm. At this point, there's no speaker. There's not really a consensus anymore either.
The only reason there is a consensus is because arguably Zavala.
Right. And with that being said, we also don't really have much of the factions doing much together besides like the initial rebuild after the Red War. So if Zavala was to be like, yes, let's go ahead and go after them, and Zavala is scared because this is Zavala showing his own a little bit of mortality, knowing that he is vulnerable with after the Red War. Ikora learned it firsthand a little bit harder, I think, than Zavala ever did, because Zavala never went into... He had the initial Red War fight, and then he jetted. Like, he forced Amanda Holiday to take him to Titan, and it forced everybody out as much as he could, and didn't really have that initial connection to his own mortality, besides because he never went into the fights. It didn't seem like it. Like, he went into the fight when they went after Gaul at the end.
I would argue, and just to interject really briefly if I can, I would argue that the reason that we saw him push to return to Titan was because he was infinitely aware of his own mortality.
Right. Like, he wanted to find a safe place to regroup and try again. Right. He wasn't ready to move directly into it. He wasn't as impulsive as... And even, I would say, Ikora was not impulsive because she went to Io. And it wasn't until she got to Io she realized that the Cabal were already there.
And then she got mad.
Right. And Cayde went to go find his own solution, his own way. But Zavala, I think, is the only Vanguard that seems to really weigh the balance of the city and the normal non-Guardians against the possibility. It's the many trump the one mentality. And I understand it. I'm still really, really pissed at him for it. And I don't think he's a coward. And I know that some people really, really hate that. But I really wish that he could have an outlet to show some of that emotion and be angry and do, like, I loved Ikora's reaction to the whole thing.
Well, and to be honest, you know, kind of going back to that outlet of emotions, that's why I really liked in the vanilla where you see him on Titan, where he kind of loses his temper.
Yeah.
Right?
But he's also terrified the whole time.
Well, so is every other Guardian. I mean, to be fair, you're talking about a group of demigod immortals who just got slapped in the face with mortality for the first time that in, you know, their entire memory.
I'm going to say more so on like a larger scale, because you still had ones that felt it, like especially Eris, of course, going down into the Hellmouth and whatnot, but having it more on a universal scale like that makes a big difference to how Guardianhood in general is now challenged.
And that was really the other that was the other philosophical debate that Zavala was having as well, because, you know, that's where the question, what makes us Guardians? If we don't have I think that was the line, if we don't have the light, are we even, like, what is it that that was the whole paradigm shift conversation that we had, is like, they have been challenged in a way that, you know, that they've never had to evaluate that. It's like, you know, telling someone who's never had to self-analyze what's going on with them, you know, hey, why do you do it this way, and not letting them leave until they answer a question like that. Like, people who aren't self-aware, they like, that will completely rock someone's expectations of reality.
Yeah.
And I think that you see that precursor a little bit as well in the vanilla campaign. I mean, that's why, again, you know, I keep going back. I honestly, of all of the events, the Warmind piece is the only one that really stands out as not being Zavala's character. And that was because in the face of a traumatic, like, event, which, I mean, arguably it's not even traumatic, but, like, in the face of this weird, stressful event, he charged head first, where every single time other than that, he has carefully and tactfully retreated to a point where he could evaluate the situation and then applied what he saw as the necessary force to overcome the barrier, which is exactly what he's doing in Forsaken. And I'm going back a little bit, Beard, here to your comment about Rior and Kamala thinking that it's out of character for him. You have to realize also that that's taking place after the events of Forsaken, right? We've already established that Uldren is dead and the Dreaming City is open, because that's what she's calling for. She's calling for Guardians to come to the Dreaming City. So the tactics in that situation, that context has fundamentally changed. It's no longer about extracting revenge. It's now about helping an ally defend their city. And so from that standpoint, it's a tactically different catalyst to engage in a battle. Whereas prior, he's saying, no, we are not police for this, lawless area. And then, I can see the fundamental difference between those two situations. I don't know if that makes sense though. Does that kind of make sense?
I mostly get it. I still think that it's kind of weak on Zavala's angle, because it's I'm not gonna I'm not gonna put things out there yet. But now after this, after the Guardian went out and did what they did, I'm a little bit more willing to do it. It just feels a little backwards to me.
I can see that. We've had so many instances of seeing the humanity in Ikora, seeing the humanity in Cayde. Like, Cayde has been faulted from the beginning. Like, he's just a mess.
Yeah.
But we've never really saw Zavala as his own, like, a human. Well, he's always been this pedestal. And in some ways, this gives him that touch of like, he's still being stoic, but regardless of what we see in game, and the fact that he's really kind of a jerk face in game, the way he comes across, the cards show he's repentant in some respects. He's lost. He's trying to find his way. He's meditating on the whole thing. Him going to Io kind of cracked me up in a lot of ways, because going out there to see the thing that Ikora went to meditate about, it's a slightly humanizing aspect, even though he's still making these really difficult decisions.
And I think that's really important, too, to remember that the intro to Destiny 2 really was a clip of Zavala's rise. We saw
that
Zavala...
is a terrifying phrase, by the way.
What?
The rise of Zavala?
Well, I mean, I didn't mean it like that, but I mean, I guess you could take it that way. But, I mean, like... You see the evolution of his character. We see him when he was first raised. We see him face adversary after adversary, trouble after trouble, and like the just like absolutely unbending refusal to not give up. I think that was the other thing, is like you see a bit of the humanity there. It's just, and I think this kind of goes back to what Beard and I were saying at the very beginning, is I think it's just a different way to respond to the events. Right. And I mean, I completely and utterly understand people who don't agree with it, but I do want to call people out and say, not agreeing with Zavala is not to say that he is wrong. It is just that it's a different way of dealing with stress and trauma. And if you think, I mean, I'll also kind of put the challenge out. If you, I couldn't watch that, or I can't watch the events of the Forsaken intro with Zavala, and I can't help but see all the emotional turmoil in Zavala. He is not unemotional in that at all. He's just stoic. He's not allowing himself to mourn publicly, which going back to Sun Tzu, to Basho, all these things is very in line with those teachings. Is you don't allow your troops to see that aspect. At least not, you don't necessarily sit there and rend your robes over the death of a compatriot, because in an army, you're not allowed to shut down during battle.
Right.
And to be fair, and that's where the summary that I was mentioning, to be fair, that's something that we have to remember about Zavala is, whereas Ikora kind of has that history of the iconoclastic individual who has no problem running her own way, and same with Cayde. I think that's where their fire team was so balanced, because Zavala was that stoic pillar who kind of was like, whether or not you want to say the downer of the group, he was the one that was like, no, this isn't the right thing to do. And he kind of was the bridle and the I guess the blinders a little bit that channeled the passion of Ikora and channeled the energetic, nature of Cayde into doing the right thing.
You have the extremes of all three personalities.
Right.
And with all three personalities together, you got it balanced. Cayde was kind of the swing point to help balance out the stoicism of both Ikora and Zavala, because they can both be incredibly headstrong and stoic. Cayde was there to help them remember to laugh and keep their heads up. Right. And he helped keep their spirits up. Like, they would have fallen real low in a lot of things, or had this quest for revenge, because Ikora would be pretty bloodlusty.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to say arguably she still very much is, for sure.
Right.
She just really fits that bill. That's just her way. Like, that's iconoclastic as a whole. That still fits her MO almost exactly.
Right.
But I was thinking about, I've been sitting here actually thinking about like why Zavala's tactics and whatnot sound so familiar. And it's funny that we bring up like the personality between the Vanguard members and whatnot, and I immediately think back to, and I know this is only going to really fit to a certain subsect probably of our listeners, but I think about George McClellan from the Civil War days.
Yep.
McClellan's tactics were very stoic in how he approached everything. He was a very slow-minded individual in terms of how his tactics would field. He was responsible, unfortunately, for a lot of our backtracking that happened, and it wasn't until Ulysses Grant got in charge of at least the Southern Army of the Potomac that allowed for us to really push through in Southern soil, etc. And that's really where the Yanks were able to really pull things around. For better or worse, however you really want to see the Civil War. But that being said, and not to bring up in those angles, it's just a fair balancing point to kind of see as like a historical figure or another one, how those points kind of venture and how they kind of make sense to how destiny follows, because Zavala very much is a George McClellan. He very much is somebody that he'll make the J-hook at Gettysburg, for instance, and he'll sit there and wait out the Confederacy. And hope that it can go ahead and stand up against Pickett's charge and whatnot. Because if Lee was nothing else, he was somebody that pushed, and he was somebody that made sure that he could push. Yep. And you had Grant that was very good at counteracting that. So those were the ones that really kind of stood out to me, at least in terms of like who could alter or counter each other. But McClellan, for some reason, now that I think about it, that I'm always going to think about that for when I think about Zavala and how he acts on the field or otherwise.
No, I think that's an excellent point too. I also really wanted to get your guys' feel on the idea. We keep kind of throwing this out there in regards to Ikora, but like, the descriptor of Ikora has always been the iconoclastic figure, right? Whereas Zavala has, for lack of a better terminology, Zavala has the spiritual strength. Like, he has something that he believes in. He has a dream. He has, the dream of the city. Everyone makes fun of him for it, but that's a Yeah, it's a spiritual vision of his, and not in like the religious connotation, but like in the sense that he has something upon which in times of great stress he can fall back on. And if you go back to just the definition of what it is to be an iconoclastic, it's a destroyer of faith. Like it's a very self-individualistic, promotional type thing. It's very, very, and not in a not in the, like an egotistical, narcissistic way. It's just the always questioning the stated, axioms and stuff like that, which makes, as a warlock, makes perfect sense. But one of the things, within grief counseling and within, handling bereavement in general, is one of the first things that you always need to find is something to help you continue pushing forward. And if you don't have that underlying, vision of something that you are working for that makes your struggles worthwhile, that puts meaning into all the pain and the suffering that you have gone through, it becomes very, very difficult. You're talking about the Civil War. Another war to look at and another point of view to look at is the point of view from Elie Wiesel from World Wars and the concentration camps. This was an individual who, Wiesel and, oh God, I just blanked on his name and I feel horrible for doing this. Man's Search for Meaning. God, why did I just blank on his name? Anyway, it's another concentration camp survivor, but their point here was that without meaning, an individual can't survive. They won't survive, because without meaning, there is no reason to survive. And
Viktor Frankl, by the
yes,
way.
thank you. Gosh, I feel terrible forgetting that guy. Amazing individual.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have not read A Man's Search for Meaning or the Night Trilogy, I really strongly recommend reading both of them. They're just amazing works. But the underlying theme between both of them is, without that drive to have to do something, you won't survive. You can't. And that goes for, the most tremendous trauma that you can think of to just struggling every day. Without having an end goal in mind, there's really nothing to motivate you to go through life. And that's not to say that Ikora's motivation is not there. Obviously it is there, but Ikora's motivation in this instance within, Forsaken, the instance that we're talking about here with Cayde's death, is a transitory point of revenge. Like, it's not something, and that is definitely something that can motivate an individual to survive a number of hardships. A lot of soldiers will make that, will attribute to that. But what happens is, after that revenge has been served, what happens? There's an emptiness there that it doesn't fill. And whereas where you see with Zavala, yes, he is much more stoic. He is much more slow to express the grief, but it's not to say, and that's why I started the episode with that distinction. That's not to say that he's not grieving. He just grieves in a different manner. He is doubling down on that dream of the city. He is doubling down on the tactics of, hey, look, he couldn't protect one of his best friends, but he can protect the city. And, if you think about it from that standpoint, he has just been harshly reminded that he could not protect one of the people that he most loved. So, yeah, it makes sense that he is doubling down to protect the other people then in his existence that he has strong feelings for. And that is, unquestionably, that is the city. He is beholden to protecting the city. Like, that is his entire point of existence, really, at this point, it seems. And, in Beard, I think that's also along the lines of where our frustrations with his character's presentation in both Warmind and then your frustration with the Dreaming City situation. I think that's where that frustration kind of comes from, because it kind of flies in the face of that, whereas everything else really kind of aligns with that paradigm of his of, we are guardians of the city. We seek to guard the city. We're not police. We're not conquerors. Our job is not to pacify, X area. So, and I don't know if you guys think that's maybe something going on there, or what your thoughts are in regards to the individual histories that we do see within there. Because, in times of stress, people will fall back on what they know. And if you look at Ikora's background, again, iconoclastic, she kind of goes off on her own and does her own thing. Where does Zavala's background? Well, Zavala's background, again, we saw the Destiny 2, trailer. His entire thing was a journey to the city. His entire thing was helping build the city. His entire thing was guarding the city. I mean, everything that he is the city. Whereas everything that Ikora is, arguably, is, again, not saying this is the right or wrong way, but everything that she is much more individualistic, challenging things, all that. So it makes sense that those two reacted the ways that they did. And I know I'm rambling on this, but, like I said at the start, this is something that, I kind of have a little bit of sensitivity and passion about, as far as
it was kind of your thing for
some
reason or
another. Kind of one of my things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm gonna let Green actually weigh in on this one, because I know she and I are on opposite sides of the view here. So I'm just curious.
That's never happened.
Yeah,
okay.
That never happened.
It's
I want
rare.
you to state.
It's rare.
Can you state your view in a very concise 2-sentence way, and then I'll foil off of it?
Like my view on why Zavala is the way he is, or the view on just their reaction?
Do you think it's more based off of essentially his experiences, and the fact that he's the city builder, he's the community leader more than anything, the soldier?
I think that is a large portion. I think that is a large part of what he defaults to. He defaults into a protective state. I think that is, without question, one of his core personalities. He is a protector. He is not an aggressor necessarily, whereas Ikora is an aggressor, not necessarily a protector. It's just two sides of the same coin.
Ikora is an action person.
Right.
Zavala is in some ways, but he's more reactionary, because he doesn't want to be the aggressor in any of the situations. And Ikora is right. You're right. She is the opposite. She is the one that goes out and she roots out the trouble before it becomes a real problem. We see that with the Hidden.
Yeah.
I think with Ikora, in some ways, both of the remaining Vanguard's reactions they're too far on each end of the spectrum. And I don't know if, I'm assuming they did that intentionally to show off the fact that their balance is gone, that Cayde was the one that balanced out the scales between the two, even though he didn't even seem like that was going to be the case. But with Ikora being as hurt as she is with this whole situation and losing basically her buddy, I don't know. It's interesting to see what's going to happen from now on, because now that we've killed Uldren, or not killed Uldren, or both Petra and us fired at the same time, I don't care who did what kind of thing. It's just the fact that it's happened. Now that has happened, Ikora doesn't have a focus per se, like she did. And so it'll be interesting to see if she continues down this path, or she calms down because we have that figured out, or not quote unquote figured out, but taken care of. Or will she be still the aggressor? Is she going to continually fight towards Riven? Is she going to fight towards Savathun? Is she going to continually hunger?
Is she going to descend down into wrath?
I don't think she will, because
but
she's
I mean,
still...
that's a danger.
it is the
Right.
danger of the situation, but I don't know.
And to be fair, I don't think she will either. I think she has enough control over herself to not have that. But I just kind of thought of something, and I think it's, I know Green and Beard, you're both going to groan at this statement, but I think it's fitting that we also see the introduction of the Drifter here, because if there's never been a more apt situation to reference a double-sided coin, it has been Zavala and Ikora. Yep. They are the same coin, but they are two opposite sides.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that, I do kind of find that interesting that, we have entries talking about the price of a double-sided coin and, all this stuff, which I don't think, to be fair, that was in reference to this situation, but I do find it kind of interesting that exists. Right. And I think, chat's kind of talking about that too as well. It's more the reactive versus proactive. They both really honestly do have the same goal. I really honestly do think that they have at their heart the same goal. It's just the path to achieve that goal that I think is the difference. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying that they don't see this working out now that Cayde's gone. I don't know, because for better, for better, really, Zavala and Ikora are actually some of the older guardians in the game, and they definitely have their own preferences. They definitely, obviously definitely have their own prior, initial reactions to situations, but they also are really, honestly, really well balanced in and of themselves. Like, they do recognize the need for cohesive teamwork. I mean, they wouldn't be Vanguard mentors if that wasn't the case. So I don't know. I don't know. I see what you're saying, Green. I'm kind of like the opposite of Beard. I see both sides, and I actually am on the side of Zavala. Because it makes more sense to me from a tactical standpoint what he's doing for this particular situation.
I'm gonna say not everything. That's the whole part about tactics and military to begin with, is to not be drawn into emotion.
Yes. Yeah.
And for myself as well, with taking Taekwondo and a couple other martial arts over the years, one of the largest things with any kind of fight is you generally don't want to become overly emotional to begin with.
The minute you lose your temper, you lose your edge.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But at the same time, there's people who argue that you have to have a certain amount of passion to be able to channel that.
Well,
right.
there is a level of being angry and being able to. So let me actually quote this on an X-Men first class level. Remember when Xavier's talking with Magneto? Now I forget his name.
Eric.
And Eric. Goodness, I don't know why I forgot that.
It's okay. You saved me for Frankel. I'll save you for. It's not the same. Oh God, I just feel.
One is so much worse.
Oh God, that is. Yeah. Okay, we're not ever going to mention this again. But
yeah,
continue.
Let's carry on like that never happened. So he's talking with Eric, and he's attempting to bring out his powers the way that he can, and he effectively says the best part of your powers, of your mind and so on, is on the edge of passion and serenity, I believe it is. And in that regard, he allows him to realize what moment or moments were very good for him to think on and remember himself, to allow for that passion to be there. But it still is something that he is in control of. But that's the biggest thing, is just being in control of that passion that you have to temper yourself. And I know that some do allow for that to go a little bit too far. But that's the long and short of it. I think that kind of sums that up with what Green, I think, is kind of saying.
Yeah.
But it, I think, fits a little bit in the same exact way that I'm kind of thinking of. Anyway, yeah.
Well, and real quick, Green, if you don't mind, I
No,
would
go for it.
counter the point that it's not that Zavala doesn't have passion.
Yeah.
It's that Zavala doesn't seem to funnel his passion in the same way that Ikora does. And
Yes.
Right,
me personally, I am more similar to Ikora in the way that I react, even though I try to be more Zavala. Like
sorry, I don't. That's not meaning to.
But
be,
you know what I mean. I try to be more calm and collected. And in a crisis, I can do that. I can be that calm person that needs to be the rock for the moment. But initially, I'm Ikora, where I'm yelling, I'm mad, I'm probably cursing. I have to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And which is
okay,
what we
but
saw
hang on. But right, you have to walk away.
Right. But if I don't, I'm going to blow up on somebody, and it's not a pretty sight.
Right, but think about that. That's kind of exactly what he's doing. He's taking a step back. He's taking a step back to evaluate the situation.
Is he walking away? But it's a different kind of stressor, though. Like,
no, it is. But I mean, and that kind of goes back to what Beard was saying as well. From a tactical standpoint, you cannot let emotions in. Like, you have to recognize that the emotions exist, sure. And as an individual, I'm sure that he does. He is quite Dino just said this in chat. And I'm gonna quote that because that's really good. Zavala is quite emotional, but it's not the same fire as Ikora. Zavala burns inward. Every life lost is his fault. Every loss, every failure, every time he ever thinks that he can relax, something goes wrong. To Zavala, the buck stops at him. It's all his fault. He is internalizing all this. And to compound that, what just happened? One of his best friends just got gunned down.
Right.
But also look at the moment before that. What had just happened there? He had let his guard down. He had let his guard down with regards to the war mine situation. And it's just that reiteration of he cannot ever relax. He is responsible for the city's defenses. Ikora is responsible for like the research and, the aggressive, response to threats and identifying threats before they might become threats. That is part of her job as part of the Vanguard mentor.
But I think the other thing with Ikora is the fact that it's not the last straw, but it is one of the final straws. And the fact that she has had to be very selfless and very externally thinking for all these different events, for all the different crises, the war, everything. She's had to think about others first before herself. And this, with Cayde dying, with Cayde being killed the way he has been, it is kind of her last straw where she's just no, this one is for me. I don't care. I'm going to go after him, or I need somebody. But at the same time, she just approves us going after him. She doesn't go after him herself.
She publicly approves us going after him too.
And
which,
that
I mean,
is
right.
That's a big difference.
That's a big thing. Like, she didn't go after him herself. She realizes that her duty is to the city still, and she is going to help us as best she can with the situation. But she is going to be that person who is going to back us up in this situation.
And to be fair, in that situation, remember that Zavala also supported us. Mm-hmm. He just didn't do it publicly. That's political. That's a political move. Right. Because again, this kind of goes into like the whole Osiris debate, right. This whole thing of detracting from what is viewed as the paramount importance for the Guardians as a general body to be doing. And if they and Zavala, this is where I also kind of agree more with Zavala than Ikora, and I think we might fall on the opposite side here. But Ikora doesn't see a problem necessarily with that, but Zavala sees that as a slippery slope. Because if he publicly supports a single Guardian exacting revenge without the Vanguard's approval, that what's next? What's the next? Because it sets a precedent.
Right.
It now says that we are our own, we are our own and they're already struggling, as we kind of mentioned before. We're already seeing a struggle because there isn't a consensus. That, Dead Orbit's going out there and allying themselves with the Reef and the Emissary card.
The spider.
Right. But that's what I mean. Is like the factions are already distributing or dispersing into things other than the city. You don't have a speaker that is holding down the central, linchpin position. Whether or not you agree with their positions, I think you can both agree that, the speaker was paramount in keeping everyone focused on the city, not on their own, let's go chase after the legendary Vault of Glass. And if you see that within the Savin card from the Awoken of the Reef, where Savin, who is the guardian who was once an Awoken, gets brought to Mara, and she notes that he's like obsessed with a almost narcissistic level evolution of his own power. So the speaker curbed that, and and that's kind of, for better or worse, that's kind of fallen on Zavala because no one else is doing it. And Hurt Chain is talking about that as well. The city has already seen one Vanguard fail completely and fall. The second one is showing cracks, and Zavala kind of is like, he's kind of again going back to the buck stops with him. There's arguably, from his point of view, he's the one that's holding everything together. Now, you can, and I will respond to my own point there, you can disagree with that because that is also completely almost borderline egotistical on Zavala's part, because that's
right.
That is a fair criticism, a completely fair criticism. But that also would go to explain, some of the actions that he has taken as well.
I don't know. I understand their positions. I think the thing that makes me most angry about Zavala is the fact that he won't sanction what we did. And I get it, but Zavala is the conservative in the situation, and Ikora is definitely not. And it bugs the out of me. I'm so tired of I'm tired of politics in real life. Let me just tie that into, I'm tired of politics in real life, so politics in game bug the out of me because I want to get away from it.
No, and that's a fair thing. And I think that's also at the heart of the debate too, is, the politics can't be ignored here. Because that is a driving force, because Zavala is very aware of politics, and I think Ikora is more kind of along the lines of what you just said. She's like, it doesn't matter. Like, and I think that was, and this is going off memory, so I could be wrong, but I think that's along the lines of what she said in the trailer too, is like, this is Cayde. Like, this is not
right. This is our friend.
This is not some random soldier. This is our best friend. He was a brother to us, and I think that's where I kind of doubled down on the fact that it's not that Zavala is not grieving; it's that he is seeing. Yes, it is, but what's more important is the survival of the city. And, from his standpoint, too, if one of their most powerful vanguards got taken out, that's a threat. Yeah. That's a very dangerous threat. So we don't want to go running willy-nilly into the face of that threat. So
to move past this argument, because we're going to continue it for days, I think. We talked about it a little bit with the Ask FFC question of the week on who's the next Hunter Vanguard. Mm-hmm. Now, we were joking about it a little bit at the beginning, but do we honestly think Marcus Wren is technically the next Vanguard based off of the Ace of Spades quest dialogue?
No.
Please explain to the folks at home why this is
sorry, no.
Because, no, I'm not trying to be cheeky. It's just, I've had so many people tell me that that's who they think it's going to be because of that one line.
Okay. let me clarify. I'm not saying that Marcus Wren couldn't be the Vanguard, but it won't be because of the throwaway line that Cayde made in the quest, because chat.
Everyone's mad in chat.
Chat is going off on this one. The line from Cayde in the what was it, the Ace and I can't even remember what the quest. Ace in the Hole. It's the one where you have to run around and you have to open all the chests, and it's like each one has a different line, which is hilarious.
Congratulations, you killed me.
Yeah, which is by the way absolutely hilarious that Cayde has all these things already written. Like he's the one for Taniks is absolutely hilarious.
Oh no. The one for the Deepstone Crypt, whoever made the Deepstone Crypt is my favorite. Oh my gosh, yes. It cracked me up.
I'll be seeing you soon. Like, it's like, oh my god.
The long whisper line.
Oh, it's bugging me so much. But
I know.
Zavala, and the one for Ikora is just, oh god, you want to talk about a heart-wrenching one. Zavala's. But no, so there's a line in there that says, you know, he's basically saying, oh, if another hunter killed me, you know, haha, joke's on you because you lost the dare. You get to inherit everything on me, including you're now the Vanguard mentor. Haha, you have to, you know, sucks to be you. And he makes a comment that he says, of all of them, Marcus is the one I expect the most. So it's not him saying him saying that it is Marcus. He's saying that he wouldn't be surprised that Marcus was the one that killed him. Like that's all he's saying.
To Marcus?
Right. I mean, that's the only thing that he's saying. He's not saying that Marcus is the next mentor. He's just saying,
do I need to bring up the lore entry for Stompy? Do I need to bring up the fact that he is on target? Like, Marcus is on target as being the guardian that will kill other guardians. And it'll be something because he decided to do it for fun or testing. It follows within the freaking lore here, guys. Like, come on.
And it's more of a mercy kill from the sound of it than anything else.
Well, like, even within Frosties, he tells I think it's whatever the one now. I can't remember his name.
He basically
says, like, yeah, like, hey, if I start to fizzle or disintegrate or anything, can you just shoot me, please? Mm-hmm. For God's sake, just to get that out of the way. I'm like, all right, this just got weird. Like,
that's what even the other hunter was. The other one's like, what? Like, and he's like, well, if you don't do it, I'm gonna go ask someone else. And they're like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll do it.
Yeah. It's like, wait, what kind of parts now?
Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
Yeah, and Dino's saying is the line is literally maybe Marcus Wren? Like, it's a question. Yeah. Like it's it wasn't confirmation of anything. It was Cayde basically making one last gamble on who actually killed him.
I'm gonna say, per that logic, some of the people that had said like Uldren should have been the Hunter Vanguard, they were actually kind of right.
Yeah, I mean, the disqualifier there is, you know, obviously
not a guardian.
He's not a guardian, which is why the Taniks line, or the Taniks quote is so great. He's like, look, I'm not going to tell you anything. I hate you, basically.
Yeah, really.
Oh,
I didn't honestly listen to that one yet.
Oh god, it's so funny. Like, it's basically
I'm currently
snarky.
Grinding said quest out, like right now. So
nice.
Does that count?
Yeah, there you go. It's a good one. It was, oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, and the great, again, going back to the whole thing, the great thing is that he had one for everyone major in his life. Like, he has one for Zavala, he has one for Ikora, I think he has one for Eris. Like, he does have it, because he's like, look, no, I'm really sorry about your ship. Like, and he also gives her permission to put rocks on his maps, because he doesn't need them anymore.
Yeah. Except we found out what that rock was anyway.
Oh, man. So, yes, to short and sweet, no. if that is not to say that Marcus won't necessarily be the next mentor. God, I hope not, because that means experiments. But
right.
But it won't be because of that particular situation.
Yeah, that line means, from an outsider looking in that hasn't heard said line yet, that line means diddly squat, guys. Sorry to tell you.
Oh yeah, Dino's giving me the quote for the Eris one. It's, "I'm sorry for your ship. However, if you did kill me, then I am not sorry for your ship, and I was totally justified." Oh, so, Green. Did you have? Was there a follow up to that particular question? Because we kind of jumped down your throat on the answer there.
No, it's okay. That's really what I wanted to just get out there, is the fact that we don't really necessarily know who the Vanguard mentor is going to be, even though we do have some lines that tease at the possibility of who it's going to be.
Yeah,
it's not actual verification of this is happening at all.
So. Well, and the other thing, I mean, and it's a legit debate if there is even going to be another Vanguard, right? I mean, it really is a legit debate there.
Yep.
Because
it's with good reason, for sure. Like, are they going to honor the position considering how he died compared to how others had died previously, or are they to be fill the position?
Right, and to be fair there, we don't know how the others... We know how Cayde got it. We don't know how Tallulah... Well, Tallulah was the first. Oh, God, there was one... We certainly know how
Tallulah gave it up.
Yeah, and then... But we don't... Do we? Do we know how Tallulah gave it up?
Yeah, we do. It was a chomp by an Ahamkara.
Oh, that's right. Okay, and then... So then the one that got it from her... we don't know. Do we know how Andal got it?
There was not. I think
there was an individual between Tallulah and Andal.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Caliban ended up getting it or not. That's the question I had earlier. If he had actually received it, or if they just let that go. I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, so here's a funny backup question: who would be the most ridiculous person to be next Hunter Vanguard?
Marcus.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Marcus just fits the bill immediately. He would, it would just win. And I think he would be the one that would probably fit with Cayde's witticisms very well, just from like the little bits we know of from the card so far, versus somebody like Shiro, who is a little bit more intense. Shiro is, I would almost say, like a mix of Cayde and Zavala, if that could be a thing. Mm-hmm. But it's more like the knowledge of Cayde, not necessarily the temperament of Cayde. That's what I think would be a little different with him.
You know who I think would be the most ridiculous Hunter Vanguard? Benedict.
No. Stop. No. Full stop. Just
logically,
no.
Though, how would that even work?
I know. It wouldn't. It would just be...
I love how Beard's just stop talking. But I'm sitting here, I'm like...
It's me throwing an audible.
But why?
It's me throwing an audible.
Comments.
That's
just
what
knock
it
off.
This isn't YouTube comments.
It's just me being cheeky. Somebody said it in chat. I thought it.
Got it.
I had to.
Dino is right. Yeah, Andal got roped into it because the one Kaiko is who I think came after Tallulah, and they went missing for 2 years. They just disappeared, and they're like, and then Dino's saying the entry that talks about his winner takes all. It was where they made the initial Vanguard dare was whoever killed Taniks first, or whoever. No, because Taniks didn't. I'm so confused. I need to go back and read these because I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But I think basically it was a competition about Taniks, basically. And Andal lost, and that's how Andal became the Vanguard. And then basically in honor of that, when Andal was killed by Taniks, that's how Cayde got put in the position.
Yep.
Right.
I was going to say, we actually had a dispatch this week. Give me 1 second, and I will pull it up.
Dispatches received from the wilds.
All right, so this one comes from JAH056004. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. I'm just going to spell it out. And he says, "Dear FFC, hi, my Halloween costume / cosplay is going to be my Sentinel Titan for D2. For my dog, I want to have him be one of the Barons from Forsaken. Which would you recommend? Thanks so much for the podcast and your good work to this community." And he sent us a picture of his dog, who's absolutely adorable. But,
nice.
So which one of the Barons of the Forsaken should he dress his dog up as?
What kind of dog does he have again?
It looks like I'm gonna just guess, so don't take offense. It looks like a mutt. It looks like a smaller mutt, like a smaller.
Okay, so not the machinist.
No, not big enough to be the machinist.
The trickster would be kind of cool.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Trickster, or
but Trickster would be a little easy. Why not Mad Bomber?
Well, because Mad Bomber has the robotic legs, right?
I mean, that'd be kind of fun.
I guess that's true, though, and it
you
would
wouldn't
explain.
Really be able to do
would,
Fanatic without the staff,
right? And Mad Bomber would explain why the dog wants to do its own thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chat's not helping. They're still arguing about the Vanguard situation.
Well,
like,
okay,
no,
it's
can't
fine.
Be them.
It's a good debate to have. Yeah, I think I would dress him up as either the Trickster, which would be a pretty easy costume, or I could see the Mad Bomber too.
The Mad Bomber. I think like the three that came to mind immediately were, and Trigger just said it in chat, is Rifleman, Trickster, or Mad Bomber. And that's just because, again, Machinist is definitely out unless you're going to put like a 50-pound bubble on the dog.
No, just styrofoam. The problem is she'll knock it off, or he'll knock it off.
Yeah.
Or chew it up. I want to see this picture, though. I
sent it to you.
No, I want to see the updated photo with the dog in the costume.
Of the dog? Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, I want to see the dog in the costume. So
the rider. Oh my gosh, the rider. Put the.
You could do that. I've seen
totally
you see the banana ones. Yeah, there's definitely ways he could do that. That would be fun. But
so yes, I think the vote really is kind of. It sounds like the Mad Bomber.
I think it would be a slight challenge, but it would also be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that being said, do we want to jump to any final thoughts or shoutouts and be here for another 45 minutes?
Okay, so
that's kind of us.
Here's my thought and shoutout. I'm going to go first and steal a little thunder. We are trying very hard to be tactful about and conscientious about the amount of time we're spending talking about things. It is difficult. Blue had to install a bot on Discord to help keep us on time.
To be fair, it doesn't take much to make me install a bot on Discord, but I'll be completely transparent there. Like, I'll be completely transparent and admit my admittance is the first step. Right.
But I want to thank, and I don't remember the gentleman's name who sent it in. He sent in a little critique of saying that we had gotten a little too long, and we reflected on the email that he sent in. He was an older gamer. I think he said he was like another 51-year-old gamer who said that he wasn't able to digest this podcast in a certain amount of time because we went on for 2.5 hours last week, which the topic was very broad. And so that's one of the things we're going to try to focus on, is try to focus into a more narrow topic, as well as kind of keep on top of the time as we're talking, which it's going to be a nice balancing act between us having our normal banter and getting the information out to you that we need to. So I really appreciate, and I'm really kicking myself for not having that email pulled up that Blue sent from this guy. I want to thank you for sending in this criticism because it's going to help us grow as a podcast and help keep us on top of our toes and try to make a better show for you guys. That being said, if you could do us a favor and go to iTunes and leave us a review. I know Blue talks about it at the beginning of every show. If you could do that, and I'm telling you, pull out your phone right now. And if you don't have iTunes, that's fine. Go talk about us somewhere else. Go tell your friends. Go tell your coworkers. Anything you can do to kind of spread the word about Focus Fire Chat, whether it's through iTunes, which helps us be bumped in the polls, or talking to your friends about it, will help spread the community and spread the knowledge a little bit faster and better. So that's my goal for you guys. Go out there and do it right now. Don't wait. You'll forget. Don't go to the bathroom. You'll forget. Get off the toilet right now. Go and do that right now. Maybe not
right now. Maybe take care of things first.
And
get up. We gotta. There's some levels here, Green. We gotta talk. I don't know about you sometimes.
I'm not trying to be invasive. I just really want.
Well, and the other thing too, to kind of balance out what Green is saying here is, let us know. Let us know what if you disagree with the request, and it's from FXSTI. And I don't know if that's a way to pronounce that. He says he's AKA the 51-year-old gamer. If you have a different opinion of that, please let us know, because to be blunt, we can only gauge what we need to change based off what we hear.
Right.
And
feedback is always welcome.
And so feedback is, if that's through iTunes, we have a contact form on the website, we're in the Discord. We definitely communicate, obviously we communicate very frequently with for everyone on the podcast team. We communicate throughout the week. So if you message one of us, we are going to hear it. But that being said, again, we have to have those messages to evaluate what we need to change. And we are more than willing and more than happy to change stuff that makes sense, that makes everything, a better thing. That's our goal. That's our goal, is we want it to be enjoyable for everyone as well as educational. That's definitely the goal here. So don't feel like anything is too critical, because it's not.
Right. And it's definitely something we're going to have fun doing this. And we're going to try to have fun and give you the best show that we can. That's what our goal is. And what you guys can take and enjoy and do and use and spread the knowledge and spread the love. I think one of my favorite things is the fact that when I jump into fire teams, people immediately start asking me questions about lore. And I'm like, guys, I just want to shoot things. But come and...
Yeah.
Come and chat in Discord. Not so much while I'm trying to shoot things, because I'm got a really bad KD currently, because I'm trying to shoot things and talk about lore, and I'm more focused on the lore at the moment. So,
right. And I think the other thing too is, if you do enjoy the rambling that we're talking about here, if you do enjoy that
we're doing right now,
right, definitely come and join the live stream or watch the archives of the live stream, because there's a lot of rambling that goes on after or before the show that doesn't get into the actual audio feed. And that's also on Twitch, again, kind of pushing there, as well as, oh God, I just blanked on it. Which, if you're not subscribed to us on Twitch, that's another way you can kind of get to if you guys enjoy the rambling, because I see chats, kind of, obviously the people who show up for the live stream kind of have the expectation that the live stream is a lot more chaotic than the end result, which makes sense.
It is.
And so, you come into it with that expectation. But if that's something you enjoy, definitely come join the live stream, because we do it every Friday. And I know that some people, you might not be able to make it. That's fine. Twitch, Twitch makes it where it archives for, I think it's like 5 or 6 days. If you want to kind of hear the ramblings that go on behind the scenes a little bit, it's always over there as well. But yeah, I think that's actually a really good shout out there, Green. Beard, do you have anything? I know you have some videos coming out.
Well, it's honestly just to kind of mimic what you guys are saying as well, because I'm in a position where I have kind of stifled my voice, and I hate that I've had to stifle my voice, because creatively I've felt like I've needed to not say some things. And that's actually kind of hurt my channel and has overall hurt like what it is that I've done. This is why I am trying to do things differently, to attempt to just say, hey, this is me trying to reach out. But if I don't have the feedback that you guys supply, I'm not going to know if it's going to work.
Right.
And if I'm not told that stuff, either good or negative, is what we either positive or negative, or critiquing, however you really want to say it. I just say positive or negative because it's either it's in a lot of ways just one or the other. I just don't know how things are going to work, and that's why I ask questions a lot of the times of like, what do you guys think of this content? If I don't know, I'm not going to be able to grow. But in the same, I'm to the point as a creator where I am done trying to appease everybody.
Yes.
And there is going to be a point where I'm still going to have to look at some comments and be like, I've got 30 other comments that are telling me they enjoy it, and I got one guy that's telling me he doesn't. I have to go ahead and start thinking about that as well. Mm-hmm. So I may be able to tie back on something, but I need to also think about the large criticism as a whole. So that's why feedback is so important, because creatively we do still grow from that feedback, period. Right. There is no other way that I can really put that. So I understand exactly where these guys are coming from, and why it is as important as it is. Because when I come on this show, I kind of, as much as I have been here for a while now, I still kind of feel like I am somebody that is here that is trying to back up what these guys are talking about, just as much as the information I can kind of like input for everybody else. But I'm still kind of like my own entity, quote unquote, that's trying to fill in the gaps. But cohesively, I think we've grown, which is
definitely
just saying a lot, considering that we started off a little flaky, and I was just like, I don't know what's going on, guys. I don't know about interacting with people. This is hard.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned that at the beginning too about the Destiny community, and that's one of its strengths is we are all very innately collaborative. Yep. Like a lot of the creators, you don't see that in a lot of other communities, and I think that's kind of going to be part of my shout out too here is, in so much as the feedback that we get, it is extremely helpful, and as a general rule, it's always been constructive. Like yep. it's not normal to get like flaming comments at all.
No,
I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, because that would be a bold-faced lie. but it's like, the large majority of comments that I see, not just with our channel and not just with Beard's channel, but like with everything is usually a matter of like, hey, why don't you think about doing it this way? And it's always, and even other contents, other content creators, there's not a lot of like attempted sabotage or anything like that, like nefarious, that you see sometimes other places. So I really, I appreciate everyone in the community for, the patience. We're all trying to figure out how to do the best thing here, and I think everyone realizes that. And for the most part, everyone's happy to chip in, their voice. And from our standpoint, I'll be honest, we appreciate the hell out of it. It helps. And that's really, it can't be said more than, I can't say that enough. So,
it helps from both sides of it all. I will say that definitely. Now it helps from all because anything that I might get over here for feedback too, I take over to my channel and vice versa. Like if I hear something from my channel, I attempt to also bring it back over here if need be, to just say, hey, this was said. What do you guys think of that?
Right.
Seldom does that happen now and again, but it, like Blue said, it's kind of a collaborative effort, and it definitely shows with the way that everything's put together. So, yeah, it's I know I'm kind of dragging this out a little bit longer, but it's just a matter that is so important for us to grow it creatively, artistically, and kind of as people in general. Because I say all the time on my channel, if I go like 4 or 5 days without content, I start to actually feel like legitimately sick, like physically sick, because I haven't made any content whatsoever. And just being able to reach out and talk to people and understand that like my voice matters to a point does a lot for me. But being able to cater that voice to you guys as well is just as important to me as a creator. So thank you for all the feedback you guys do leave when you get a chance to. It does make a difference.
All right, so with all that being said, we'll run through an outro, and then, hey, guess what? We're going to stay for a little bit of an after show.
Hey, that never happens.
With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to our episode archives can be found at www.focusfirechat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.